Last video, we learned about how to address people casually. In today's video, we will learn about how to address people formally in Filipino. Hi, I'm Christine. Welcome to my channel, Learn to Speak Filipino. Let me share my screen now for addressing people formally.
When addressing people formally, we say the person's pangalan, name, given name, first name, or in Filipino culture, when you say pangalan, we also say our full name. Comes with a first name or given name and the apelyido or the family name. So, in Filipino, when you say pangalan and it's formal, you say the full name of the person, the pangalan, the given name, and the apelyido or the family name. The full name, the pangalan and apelyido are usually accompanied by the title ma'am for babae or woman, and or miss for a single woman or even for a married woman. So, for example, Miss Cruz. If you're going to use the title again, together with the pangalan and apelyido, the full name, so you can say Miss and then the pangalan and then the apelyido, so you can say Miss Christine Santos or Miss Cherry Cruz. Sometimes we just say the title Miss and then the family name for short. For example, Miss, which is the address for a woman, and then followed by her family name, which is Cruz. Even if in Filipino culture, we borrow or adopt the titles ma'am or miss, or Mrs. for that matter, when addressing people, specifically women, we have our own Filipino word for miss, which is binibini. Have you heard about the binibining Pilipinas? The word binibini there means miss. So binibini is the Filipino word for miss. So you say, for example, again, like using miss, you use the title binibini followed by the apelyido. So you say binibining Cruz. Binibining Cruz. The NG attached to binibining before the apelyido Cruz is your linker. If you want to address the lady without the name or without stating the name or the family name, then you can just say binibini. But that is used only in formal situations. For example, in the academe or in the government when it is called for. And so when the national language is the medium of instruction in any formal gathering in academic institutions or government, then that's the only time we contextually correct to use the address binibini. So you can say binibining Cruz, or if you want, you can abbreviate it. Okay, BB dot is the abbreviation for binibini, and then followed by the apelyido or family name. A variation could also be to use the title binibini before the full name, meaning pangalan and apelyido. We also commonly call a married woman Misis, formally, and then we add the family name. So Mrs., for example, and then Reyes. If we readily use Mrs., the English title Mrs., when addressing people, women, married women, we also have our own title for a married woman, and that is ginang. Ginang. So like the use of Misis, okay, you put the title followed by the family name. Okay, so you say ginang. Ginang can also be used to address the married women in the audience. Okay, most especially in more formal occasions in the academe or in government gatherings. No? When we use ginang, we also add the apelido after it. So you say ginang and then Reyes, or which is the apelido. So ginang Reyes or ginang Cruz. When you want to make it formal, then you can also use the title ginang plus the full name, the pangalan and the apelido of the woman. So Ginang Teresa Reyes, Ginang Emmy Cruz. In the history of the Philippines, we have had 2 woman presidents. Okay? So the way we call our woman president is the most formal way we could address, the most formal example rather, to show how we could formally address a married women using the title, the Filipino title, ginang, and then the family name. Okay, so you can say Ginang Aquino, Mrs. Aquino. So this is with reference to Mrs. Cory Aquino, and also Ginang Arroyo, so Mrs. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. So we formally address the president in Filipino by calling them Ginang Aquino or Ginang Arroyo. So Ginang Corazon Aquino or Ginang Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. When the president was female, though not the official title, we also say Ginang Pangulo, Mrs. President. So Ginang is the Filipino title for a married woman, or the equivalent Misis in English. On another note, if the president of the Philippines is male, then we call the first lady unang ginang. Una is first and ginang is Mrs., the equivalent of first lady. Therefore, in Filipino, the way we address our first lady is unang ginang. We move on to how we address formally the male or lalaki, male. Generally speaking, we address lalaki, sir. So when we the security guard or the people in the shops, no, address male customer as sir. Then we elevate it; it becomes more formal by calling the customer or the male lalaki is male. We call Mister. Of course, with a Filipino accent, Mister. For formality, especially in organizations or companies, we add the first name to these titles. So, to show respect, we say Sir Romel. So we add the first name, Sir Romel. Okay? Or we add the family name. So we can say Sir Reyes. The same way for Mr. So we say Mr. and then Reyes. Or you say Mr. Romel Reyes. So you add the full name for a more formal context, okay, to show respect formally, no? And it's also, without the name, of course, for strangers, it's also common to call lalaki, okay, sir or mister. To address sir or mister, especially in organizations, in companies, in government. No? So we call them sir or mister, of course, with a Filipino accent. If we can adapt the sir or mister from English titles, no, to address male strangers, we also have our own Filipino word for sir or mister or to call a gentleman, which actually what it means. So yung ginoo. Okay. Ginoo means man. It's an address used for men, okay, for a man. So you say ginoo. Ginoo in Filipino refers to man, and it also refers to the characteristic of a gentleman. Okay, so ginoo is gentleman or man. So like binibini and ginang, you also add the title ginoo with a linker, ng, and then the apelyido or family name. So you say Ginoong Lopez. Mr. Lopez is Ginoong Lopez. Ginoo, ng, and then the apelyido, Ginoong Lopez. Abbreviated, when written, it is G, capital G dot, and then apelyido, which is Lopez. So Ginoong Lopez. Now, if there is ginang pangulo, okay, this is also how we address our president who is male. Okay, so we say in Filipino, for Mr. President, we say Ginoong Pangulo. Mr. President. Though that is not the official title, we could address that. Okay, we could address the president using Ginoong Pangulo. So you will hear that in radio programs, speaking in Filipino, no? Or in academe, or in, of course, in government. No? So you say Ginoong Pangulo. So with our incumbent president, also you use the word Ginoo, okay, for Mr. And you add the family name. So you can say Ginoong Marcos. Ginoong Marcos. If the president is female, okay, we call the first gentleman Unang Ginoo. Unang Ginoo. Una is first, Ginoo is Mr. or the equivalent is gentleman. So the first gentleman in Filipino we call Unang Ginoo. So to recall the plural marker mga, to make gentleman plural to become gentleman, okay, if we're addressing formally, okay, men, we use the plural marker mga before the title Ginoo. So you say mga Ginoo, or gentlemen. Mga binibini, mga ginang at mga ginoo. In English then, it is ladies and gentlemen. So mga binibini, mga ginang at mga ginoo, maraming salamat for watching this video. Maraming salamat for listening.
Remember the context in using the words to address people. Always refer to the first video about addressing them casually and to this video about addressing formally. Maraming salamat po.